Welcome back, theory fans, to another video tutorial. This one is theory assignment number 3, or how to create major and minor scales and how to write them. So in the previous tutorials, hopefully you've seen them by now and you have a better understanding of how an interval works and what that is and how you write it, what's the theory behind it, but most importantly, what those sound like. What is the sound of the octave? What is the sound of the perfect fifth or the minor third or the tritone? When you put these intervals together one by one and you put them next to each other, you create a pattern, right? And that's all music really is. It's just a bunch of patterns. And it's a bunch of organized patterns that we perceive to be music. You can put this pattern together and we're going to call it a scale. Now the scale can be theoretically any grouping of intervals, and you can call it the Fred scale, the Jane scale, or whatever you want. But in the Middle Ages, the Greeks used a particular pattern within one octave that they liked, and they liked it so much, this pattern so much, that even today in Western music, the overwhelming majority of all melodies created are based on this particular pattern or sequence, and it uses whole steps and half steps, which is the same as saying major seconds and minor seconds, which is the same as saying tones and semitones. And they put them in this particular order: whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, or whole step, or excuse me, major second, minor second, major, 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 minor. Let's show you what that is right here. So if I start on E flat, let's say, it doesn't matter where you start on any note or any pitch, and you want to use this particular pattern, let's do it. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. You're done. You have created the major scale, the most common used melody maker in the Western Hemisphere. Here's what it sounds like. You want to get that sound in your head. It's a bright sound. Some people describe it as happy. So that's the most common one. I would say the second most common one is the minor scale. And all the minor scale really is it's the exact same pattern, but instead of starting here, it starts here. And it goes whole, half, whole, half, whole, which you can see right here. So if I use that pattern, let's go find ourselves a minor scale and do it. Here is, let's call it D. And this time, instead of using whole, half, I'll use major and minor to use that terminology. So major second, minor second, major, major, minor, major, major. So you have basically shifted the same grouping, but now the sound is different. Listen. So the quality of this sound people seem to describe as darker or sadder. And it's just yet another way that you can make melodies. If you follow these two patterns, you will be right every single time. There is one more way that you can write scales. I find it to be faster for me, but knowing both is great, and you can use whichever one works for you. And that is using this, the circle of fifths. A most excellent creation, a most excellent reference. Mastery of the circle of fifths will help you understand how music basically works in the Western Hemisphere. So the circle of fifths does not tell you where the whole steps and half steps are necessarily specifically in here. However, what it does tell you on the outside is it tells you where the flats and sharps are in the scale that will create the same pattern. So for me as a trumpet player, or for perhaps a violinist or a flautist, when you learn how to play scales on your instrument, you're not really thinking whole steps and half steps. You're basically doing muscle memory and muscle movement, and your fingers are getting used to the feel of how to move around in these particular keys, what F feels like and D feels like, even C minor, which is a shifted pattern of E flat. And that works really well. It's also another way to do it, and you can arrive at the same conclusion, just a different way. And so I'll show you. Let us use D major. So the way that you do this for the circle of fifths is if you look at D and you know your music theory and you know that D has two sharps. What are the two sharps? Here they are. And if you forget the order, well, it's on the F and the C. So it's F sharp and C sharp. You can write by starting on D, going up the musical alphabet, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. All right, I'm done. And then all I have to do is go back here and put in the two sharps, which were F and C sharp. And I should have the same sound that I had before. Bright or happy, right? I'm going to do the same thing once more. Let's use let's use bass clef, and let's use this A here, A minor. So let's find A minor. There it is on the circle of fifths. A minor has the same key signature as C major. Interesting. It's like they're related to each other. That's because it's called a relative key. It's almost the same thing I was telling you as intervals, where each of them kind of has their parent or opposite. It's the same thing. So A minor and C major have the same key signature. There's no flats or sharps, so I just go from A to A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Hey, I'm done. That's A minor. Right? And that is another way that you can approach it there, using the circle of fifths and applying the key signatures, or using the whole step and half step method. What you're really looking for is whatever gets you to understand it so that you can play it, so that you can hear it, and you can move around. So in the next tutorial, we'll talk about how to hear those.